Well, hello there, Sarah. I am so excited you're here with me today. Welcome to the Nutra Narratives podcast. Thank you for being here.
I know, I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this ever since we did our Zoom together with your students. I think that was the most amazing time I've ever had. And then you said, let's do a podcast. I'm like, let's do it.
Yes, the students have been on cloud nine since hearing you speak, being inspired and encouraged by your life, what you do. You made a huge impression on them.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. That was probably, I think honestly, that was my favorite group speaking event I've ever done to date. So I really enjoyed it.
Yay. Well, in the coming years, I'll be always asking you to speak to my class.
Yeah.
So great. So, Sarah, okay, you are this amazing dietitian, which I am just blown away. And I'm just going to reel it back to the beginning. How did you get interested in nutrition?
Well, I think the Cliff Notes short version is I grew up an athlete, even though a lot of people don't identify me as a tomboy. I totally was growing up, never wore makeup till like age 18. And so I was really into sports, really into athletics. And in my teenage years, my mother got diagnosed with diabetes. So not only was I into like human performance, but she got diagnosed with diabetes and we had to learn a lot about it, my twin sister and I. And when we both graduated, my sister said, well, I want to do the hands on career. So she went to be a nurse. And I said, I kind of want to do the hands off career. I don't want to be putting needles in people. And I said, I want to go into the field, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a dietitian at first. So I actually got a different bachelor's degree and worked in corporate wellness for a little while. And that's where I met my first dietitian. She was so cool. Her name was Gina. And I said, okay, this is what I really want to do. So that's when I became a non-traditional like graduate student, went through the internship and became a dietitian. So that's kind of the short version of what brought me to the field.
Oh, I love it. What school did you go to get your degree?
So there's only a couple schools here in Arkansas that actually have internships for dietetics. We do have some other dietetics programs, but the one that I went to for my internship and my master's is called University of Central Arkansas,
Ah.
and it was a really good experience. It's a great school. A lot of young people go there to become dietitians now, and so it's one of the only
Nice.
two schools we actually have internships here still to this day in Arkansas.
Wow. Wow. Okay. We don't really hear so much about Arkansas, so I'm loving hearing about Arkansas and the nutrition and dietetics program that they have over there. Excellent.
Yeah, I was looking
Great.
at the other day licensure because I keep my license even though I don't really practice dietetics, but I keep it. I worked hard for that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I was on the licensure website for Arkansas and it said there's 793 licensed dietitians in the whole state. I don't know if that's a big
Oh.
number or not. I would imagine it's a pretty small number.
It's true, but you're one of them. And so there you go. Okay, so you graduated, and what did life look like for you after graduation?
Well, I had a very interesting internship because my
Mm.
professor was actually retiring, my internship director slash professor, and my husband at the time, well, same husband now, but at that time in his life,
Yes.
he had just became a coach. And I swear it was just God's timing because my intern director called me one day and she was like, hey, would you like to take a management position in a brand new long term care facility that actually wants to try a new thing? They want to have a full time dietitian that's actually in house, not just a consultant dietitian. And it was just God's timing. We were also pregnant with my son in my
That's
internship.
right. Oh, wow.
And I was literally 9 months pregnant, like going through my food service rotations. This job opportunity came up for $45,000 a year. And let me tell you something, I thought I had made it, girl. I was like, I have made it, And
Yeah.
I took that job and we moved and we've been here in the city ever since. And it was great timing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't really know what I wanted to get into at all. And she presented that opportunity. But the problem was I missed out on a lot of rotations because they actually allowed me. I don't know if a lot of people do this now, but they allowed me to count my work hours as internship hours. And
Oh, wow. We don't do it in our program, but wow, lucky you.
Well, I think it was lucky, but then also I look back on that and I had to go and volunteer a lot. I had to volunteer at a renal facility. I had no experience in renal at all. And then I was thrown into this long-term care facility with a lot of kidney patients and things like that. And I just felt very inadequate. And so it was great to get that job, but it also, I felt like a little shorted. So I would definitely suggest everyone do all their internship hours. And, at the time it served a need though.
Yes, right. Definitely, for sure. While you were doing that first job, food service, what were your thoughts though, other than, yes, $45,000? And back then, that does seem really huge. I mean, I would have thought the same thing too. But as you were doing it and a new mom, I mean, what were your thoughts? I can't even begin to imagine all these changes.
Yeah, I learned really quickly I didn't like food service, but there
Okay.
are great dietitians for food service. I
Right.
went on later in my career and worked with so many amazing ones, and I thought, there's a place for every dietitian. But that's why I was encourage younger dietitians to try every single route just to figure out what you do like, because not everybody's cut out for food service, not everybody's cut out for clinical, not everybody's cut out for online business, and it's like we all need to find our way. But also was had an open mind along the way. Like I was willing to just do whatever just to get the experience and figure out. And at the time, I needed to pay for diapers. And so, I just did
Yes.
what I needed to. But yeah, food service wasn't for me, mostly because, you have to be really hands on in the kitchen. You have to, like, I
Right.
was overseeing a CDM, a certified dietary manager, and I was overseeing 8 employees in a 100-bed facility. And I was 25 years old, and that's 15
Wow.
years ago. So it just, I learned pretty quickly food service wasn't my thing.
Yeah, but you had also mentioned that there were some weekends that an employee couldn't go to work and you
Yeah.
had to fill in for
Yeah.
your
You know
employee.
what? I did it because that was my job. But it was like dragging out of bed 6 a.m. in the morning. The facility was 45 minutes from my house. And
Ah,
here's what I will say later in life. That built a lot of resilience in me as a
yeah,
new dietitian,
right.
and when you're dedicated to your service of whatever it is, you're going to do it. You're not going to
Mhm.
complain. And, but yeah, I had to get up, leave my newborn in bed with my husband and,
Mhm.
go flip eggs. And I just said to
Wow.
myself, like, man, I didn't go to school to get a master's degree to do this. It's not what I want to do. And
Exactly.
some people enjoy it and that's okay, but it wasn't what I enjoyed.
Yeah, the dietetic students that you spoke to, my students, they were very impressed with that, with your first job, that you did what you had to do, get up and fill in for your employee, even if that's not really what you went to school for, but they
Yeah.
were just amazed at your humbleness and humility in taking on that position. So
No.
you set a good example for
Oh,
them.
thank you. I try. I want to lead by example for our profession. And, I feel like I've had so many different experiences. It's easy to talk about all of them. And looking back, I feel like they were all learning lessons. And it's so cool to kind of look at your career backwards too. You may do that
Yeah.
yourself. I don't know. But,
Mm-hmm. I
it's
do.
like when you're in a year or two, you can't really look at it backwards, right? And I look at all these
Right.
different experiences and it literally led me to the Sarah I am today.
Yeah. Every step that you took was a stepping stone to I believe God sets those stepping stones.
Yeah.
He has a plan to get you to another plan and then another plan and then the ultimate plan.
Yeah. I agree. Totally. We're on the same page there.
Yeah. Yay. So then after that job, what did you do next?
So about a year and a half in, I started to realize, hey, maybe I want to look for other positions. I'm a very loyal person, and my whole life, I worked at 2 facilities in 12-ish years before I
Wow.
went full time entrepreneur. So, once I got my second job, I was there for the last 10 or 11 years of it. But about a year and a half in, I actually applied for 2 different positions. I applied for a WIC position because I thought, oh my God, I had a newborn. I breastfed him. I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. And I actually got called and interviewed by WIC. But at the same time, this position at the VA opened and it was a lot more money. It was a lot better benefits. And I actually turned down the WIC position and just trusted that God was going to because I was in limbo at the VA. I interviewed, and it was 6 months later that I
Whew.
got the job. That's how
Oh.
the VA rolls.
Wow, they take their time.
Yeah, it was a long process, but I just said, you know what? It's not in my
Yeah.
heart to do this wig position. I'm going to wait. And if it works out
Oh.
with the VA, it's meant to be. And so I actually trusted in God at that time that that was going to be the thing, and I turned down the wig position. I waited another like 4-ish months, and
Wow.
bam, the VA called me and I got the job.
Wow. But see, that's such a that's inspiring to us that you knew that in God's time it would happen. And you didn't even know how long that was going to take, a
Yeah.
month or two, but 6 months. But you hung in there and he opened that door.
Yeah. And it was great. And I enjoyed it and I loved it. And that's where I finished my
Mhm.
clinical dietetics career, was there at the VA, about 11 years serving veterans and, doing diabetes education there. And I loved every second of it.
That's beautiful. So then, where did the entrepreneurship start within that or after that? Can you walk us through that? Would love to hear it.
Yeah. So it was around 2014. I started thinking, hey, this is pretty good money, but I'm not really experiencing the lifestyle that I wanted. And I had to, two kids in at that point, I had to kind of take a look and say, man, we don't even have college savings for these kiddos. And I had some, investments at the VA. My husband was a teacher, a full-time teacher at the time, and he had retirement and stuff like that, but we didn't really have the future built for our kids. And since we met at 18 and put ourselves through grad school, we had a lot of student loans and we paid bills since that age. And anyways, it was like I just wanted my kids to have everything they ever needed or wanted. I wanted them to have opportunities, and I just wanted to make a little bit more money.
Mhm.
And we both actually started a little side hustle around 2015. So started thinking
Oh.
about it in 2014 and started taking action on it in 2015. And then that led me into this last 7 years, just evolution of Sarah as an entrepreneur.
Wow, if you just only started in 2015 and you're at where you're at now, that is incredible.
Yeah, but I look back on it, my first 3 years were the toughest. And it
Yeah.
was, I tell my clients all the time, and I tell anyone in the online space,
Yeah.
you got to pay your dues a little bit as an entrepreneur because you're finding your way. It's like getting you're like Bambi out here walking with legs, as a new deer in a headlights, and your legs are all wobbling as an entrepreneur. And, it's
Right.
like I was pushing a boulder uphill for almost 3 years, but, I was making enough money to continue to pay off some student loans and things like that. And I just said, hey, every little bit of extra money that we make
Hmm.
is a blessing, and
Right.
I'm learning new skills. And the way I look at entrepreneurship is, it took me 6 years to get a master's degree and become a registered dietitian. Why would it take me any less to be a seasoned entrepreneur?
Ah, that's so inspirational and insightful, and we can definitely take that and go with that for sure and apply that to our own mindset too. So thank you for that. So then, Sarah, how did you know exactly then that you thought, "Oh, I want to be coaching other dietitians." How did that come on?
I never knew that. I
Oh.
just knew that God had put some leadership skills in me, and I liked the online space. And I
Mm.
slowly over the years, you know, had just all kinds of people asking me about, hey, I see you do these live videos. Like, how can I do live videos? I have a service or I have a product that I want to sell. And it was all kinds of people at first.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just started answering questions in my DMs, like voice clipping. And then I would
Ooh,
slowly start doing like videos on business and stuff like that. And
okay.
then my first dietitian, her name was Emily. She worked with me over a year. She came to me, I believe it was in 2019, and said, I want to know what you're doing with your nutrition practice. I don't care if you're taking business clients or not. I will pay you and I'll be your first client.
Ooh.
I came home and told my husband, I was like, I guess I need to do this.
Oh
Like,
my goodness, that is so neat.
yeah, Emily Cornelius, she was my first client. We're still friends to this day. I check in on her. Like, I thank her so much for just pushing me into it. And again, God puts people in your path and God puts
Right.
things in your path. And that was a pivot for me in 2019. So the last 2 years, I've just been full time mentoring dietitians and nutrition coaches online. And it truly is, I feel like, what all the preparation has been throughout my life for this, you know.
Yeah. So along the way from what you developed, it was through trial and error, the program that works for you in
Yeah.
coaching your own clients. How did that come about?
Yeah. So, I mean, in 2016 ish, I started doing live video on Facebook. There was no stories, there was no TikTok, none of that was going on.
Right.
And I slowly started to see, like, just different trends that would happen, and I would have to adjust. And then it became not only social media, it was like talking to people and building relationships online, because so many people think that building a business online is about selling, and in reality it's really not about selling. I mean, yeah,
Mm,
there are some sales
yes.
tactics you need to use, but you need to be a human first. And I think
Oh, I love that.
understanding understanding relational marketing and getting to know people. So all of these things, I just put myself in rooms of people that were doing it, no matter what industry. I just started learning from leaders and getting books and practicing things that worked with people myself. And sometimes it'd be like, well, that didn't work out, and I would mark that off the list. Okay, that's not going to work. I'll never do that again.
Uh-huh.
And I found the things that did work, and I put together a 4-step program, and I started running people through it. And Emily was the first one, and she built a 6-figure business. And I was like, all right, let me build more Emily's. So,
Yes, so true.
yeah.
So then, why why would a new dietitian or even a dietitian that has worked for a long time and now she wants to switch over to the online world, why would it be wise to invest in a coach to help with the business?
Well, I feel like there's a couple things, and some people could build a business by themselves, but they
Okay.
might do it being very frustrated and not knowing what
Mm,
they're doing and not having success the way that they really wanted it.
right.
But you could find somebody that has like a tried and true method that really works and has been duplicated in thousands of people, and you could do it without worry and without stress and without concern about if you're doing the right thing. I hear so many times like, I want to do this right. Well, if you want to do it right, you need to find a method and a system that works and has been duplicated. And that's where a coach can come in.
Yep.
And I think we're not meant to do things alone. It's kind of like even in
Right.
the days of growing up with teachers, I can still remember my third grade teacher. And my daughter asked me about my favorite third grade teacher the other day. And I said it was Miss Rainbow. Like, that was her name. I loved her. Why do we have teachers in our life? Why do
Mm,
you have an amazing group of people that you are a professor to? Like, we
right.
need to learn and be mentored to develop skills.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people tried building a business on their own, but it just ends up in frustration and not knowing what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, just hiring someone that knows what they're doing and can support you and give you the right strategies, it takes the guesswork out.
So
Um,
true.
and I started hiring coaches in 2016, and I've not ever, I think I had 1 3-month gap where I was trying to find that next person for me.
Yeah.
And when you get to a certain level of business, it's kind of hard to find that next person.
Got
Um,
it.
but I've just never been one that says, hey, once I started craving that learning environment and being around others that were doing what I wanted to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my biggest tip. I'll leave the conversation at that, is that
Mm-hmm.
you got to find the person that has done what you want to do and has
Right.
mastered it and has the life you want to live, and get under their wing.
Yes, absolutely. Because we need to be in that mindset of we are always going to be lifelong learners. There's
Yes.
always room for improvement and learning. And we can never just be content where we are or think we've already, we know all that there is to know, because we can always learn from valuable coaches like you, for sure.
Yeah. And I think in the coaching space, there's a big difference in teaching and coaching.
Well,
Like,
that's true. You're right.
you can
Hmm.
take a course and learn, but the true mentor and coach, no matter if it's somebody that's just like for businesses for dietitians, or if it's somebody that's like a mindset coach or a money coach. There's
Mm,
all kinds of coaches for things in the world,
correct.
right? But
Right.
a true coach is going to help you troubleshoot, hold you accountable, and help you pivot when you need to pivot,
Oh, yes.
versus teaching is just, yeah, you can learn something, but
Right. Good
now you have to
point.
go apply
A
it.
good point. So true. I know, going through my last degree, we are not called students, we're called learners.
Yeah.
And then our teachers are called facilitators. And so it's within that coaching mindset too.
Yes.
And that is what really makes a difference in somebody's life. It's someone that coaches you. And yes, as you said, when you hit a bump, it is scary to figure out what to do by yourself, but that coach will say, well, let's work this through. Here's an option. And I know you do that so well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I feel like a good coach will get you 10x return on your investment. I mean, I just strongly
Wow.
feel like that. And not only the peace of mind is invaluable, but if you're looking to build a business, the monetary gain and in the shorter amount of time. What
Mm.
I built over almost 6 years, I see my clients doing it in 6 months now. And it's crazy, but it's like I did all the guesswork, I did all the things that didn't work, and I figured it all out, packaged it up really tightly, and now people are doing what I did in 6 years in 6 months. So
Mm.
it's nice to see.
Yes, that is a gift that God has given you to be able to share with others for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, Sarah, I'm going to transition to what are your personal favorite nutrition practices that you do on a regular basis?
Well, I'll tell you, I've changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
This could be a podcast by itself, but so many dietitians now have taught me so much about like listening to our body and staying calm and
Right.
like really being careful of over exercising. And I'll tell you, I came from a background of, I mean, in college, I feel like this is something I don't talk about much, but I think I
Mm.
brought up once on my personal podcast. But
Yeah.
I would eat and I would exercise 3 times a day. I would eat and then I would think I would need to burn the calories off and exercise. So I come from that athlete background and that chronic exercising background. And so for me to go out
But
and
we've
just
all
say,
been there.
right, right. But
Uh-huh.
now I
Back in the
focus,
day.
yeah, I focus on things now that just kind of keep my body calm. Like this morning, I went out and did a crisp walk in the air, and I try to decrease my amounts of caffeine and eat more plant-based foods. But there's just so much in the last couple of years that didn't go on 15 years ago when I became a dietitian.
Yeah.
Um, so
Right.
yeah, I think
I
trying to
love it.
find what's best for us, plenty of water, plant-based, and for me, I'm not a naturally thin person, so part of my nutrition philosophies has changed over the years where
Yes.
stop trying to force yourself to a size you're probably not meant to be and be healthy.
Right. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I've always been trying to gain weight just because that's how my genes are. But
Yeah.
it's work, girl. I mean, for me, it's hard. So during the pandemic, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave it. If I'm this skinny, then that's how God made me. But yeah, just accepting how God made us
Yeah.
is so liberating, so freeing.
Yeah. And just doing things to calm my body. And I
Yeah.
mean, of course, I've
True.
learned a lot about gut health in the last couple of years and
Mhm.
hormonal health. And I just have a lot of different nutrition philosophies now
Right.
than I did 5 to 6 years ago when it was all about calories in versus calories out. And oh, I had my fitness watch, and if I ate this many calories, I would have to burn this many. Like it was awful. And so
Yeah.
glad to not be there anymore.
Yes, I know. I used to be tied to different devices too. And it's like, God, why did I imprison myself in all that? But you're right. Just like you, over the years, we continue to fine tune our nutrition philosophies. And it's so nice to hear where you're at now, too.
Yeah, thank
Hmm.
you. Yeah, I
Yes.
still I still think about, clinical dietetics and being a dietitian all the time, but then the last couple of months I've been telling my husband like I'm forgetting some of these skills as a dietitian. Like I'm forgetting them, but I mean obviously I don't plan on necessarily
Yeah.
using them, but it's like,
Right.
you went to school for so long, you don't want to forget things. But
Right. No, but
I
it's
can
okay. I'm sure it's still there, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still there.
Part of me is like, can I calculate a tube feeding today if I really needed to? I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure. Once you have that calculator and the numbers, you're like, oh, it's like riding a bike. And
Yeah.
so I believe it. I totally believe it. Okay, so what is a favorite Bible verse that you have embraced along the way in your journey of life?
So I have several, but I wrote one
Okay.
down today. It's actually John 14:1, and I'll read it.
Yes,
Um,
please.
but I want to talk about why it's important, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
because discouragement and worry is, I think it's a human nature thing. Like we all get in these situations of discouragement and worry. But if you really study the Bible and you know what God has planned for our lives, you just need to be able to kick that worry to the curb. Now, I'm not perfect in this. I mean, I still have days where I get a little discouraged sometimes, and I'll tell you, that is when maybe I've went off the rails on the weekend and maybe we traveled and had little fun foods and drinks and my mood is also affected. That's when I find that, food directly impacts our mood, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's when my discouragement and my worry seems to be at its height. And so if I manage those things better and I keep the outdoor walks and the water and the fruits and veggies, stuff like that, my mood is better. So worry and discouragement don't happen that often.
Ah,
But when they do, I have to know that God does not want humans to worry. And so the verse that I wrote down is John 14:1. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Because God and Jesus never wanted us to be troubled, discouraged, or worried. And they instead want us to come to them
mm,
and talk to God about it.
I love it.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I love that
Oh,
one.
that right there, I've always heard that verse and I've always loved that verse. But in the um, lens that you put it through, that's even more empowering to see that verse. So thank you. I've even just been inspired right now hearing
Good.
that from
I
you.
like that one. I try to share my Bible study every day on social media. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll miss a day, but a lot of times it's, I wake up in the morning and it's whatever word God puts in my heart. And it's usually something to do with like either my life or something a client is experiencing or a friend. And it's always like a certain word, like worry
Right.
or patience or encouragement. And the word, whatever comes to me in the morning,
Mm,
that's what my Bible study is. So if you follow me and you see my Bible studies,
right.
it's literally the words that God puts on me. And I know it's because someone following
Yes.
me needs to see that message.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. So I'm going to ask you about that, how our listeners can connect with you. But before that, any word of advice for those who are just trying to figure out their calling in life? Because that can be frustrating at times.
Yeah, and what's really hard is like just going every day and just showing up, no matter what it is. Like if you're showing up in a clinical setting or an online business, and you don't really know what that next step is. For years I kept thinking like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? I knew I was meant to be doing something more than what I was doing, but I couldn't see it because we don't see the future. You
Yeah,
know, uh,
true. We
we don't
don't.
have,
Mhm.
yeah, we don't see the future. We don't have a crystal ball. And sometimes when you're working on something new, as particularly when I became an entrepreneur, I just kept asking God, like, show me the way, tell me what I'm supposed to do. And every day I just kept showing up and kept doing things. And all of a sudden the evolution happened. But I feel like it takes a lot of patience and resilience and just knowing that you can't do fill in the blank, whatever it is. You can't keep showing up and working on something and it not pay off for you if it's supposed to.
Mm.
If it's not supposed to, then you need to look at it as a blessing that God put in front of you, that, hey, that wasn't really the path you were supposed to take.
Ah, yes. Instead of being discouraged from it, instead of
Yeah.
being down from it, it's God communicating to us.
Yeah. But see, it took me years to figure that out. I think a lot of times when I look back in my 20s, I really didn't trust my instinct and trust things that I felt at the time God was telling me. In fact, until I quit my clinical job, I don't really feel like I really trusted like the path that God had laid out or knew how to trust it.
Got it. Yeah,
Um,
I hear
the
you.
week the week I was quitting my job, I was Googling signs from God. And the lady at the front, the clerk, she said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, we're probably not supposed to talk about this at work, but because, rules. But I was like, I'm Googling signs from God. And that was the first time I really opened up and said, I'm taking these steps because God is putting this in front of me.
Wow. Wow. That was even showing a big part, like you even showed that. You exemplified that you were putting your faith in God even if you didn't know how you were going to know somehow some way. That showed God you were already trusting in him big time.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, my biggest advice would be just
Mhm.
you'll figure it out. You just got to keep going. Get
Yeah.
up and treat every day like a new start, every week like a new start, and
Ooh,
do
I
what's
love it.
right and do what's right by people and, put others first and you'll never go wrong.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. That is just so inspirational. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, how can listeners get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on Instagram more these days. I'm an old school Facebooker, and I still have my Facebook, but I'm on Instagram more at the Sarah D Hall. D is my middle initial.
Okay.
And then from there, my podcast, my website, everything is all linked there. So probably that would be the best place.
Perfect. And I will put all that in the show notes so that those who listen, and I'm sure those who will listen will want to be in touch with you. So thank you, Sarah. I know you're so busy with all of your clients. You have like almost 200 clients.
I do have a lot, and people always ask me like, "How do you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I can teach you how to have that many clients, and everyone feels loved, and they know I'm there for them, and I know their kids' names, and I know,
Whew.
everything about them." And I'm like, "Do I have a photographic memory? I'm not sure, but I really work hard to know people.
Yes, that's one of the awesome traits that you have that people are drawn to you because you do make them feel so loved and cared for, and you do know all of them. So again, thank you for taking your time to be here, and I really appreciate the wisdom, the love that you have shared with us, and I know that God's love flows through you, and that was absolutely evident today. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. We'll have to do some more collabs in the future because I always enjoy talking with you. I feel like we're on the same wavelength.
Yes, same here. I am looking forward to that.